She said, "You're just a part of my past," so I let her erase me. Years later, karma made her feel the same pain. I'm 34 now, but this started years ago in Chicago. I met Claire at a friend's rooftop party in Wicker Park. Wind off the lake, lights strung across the brick. She talked like she was late for a plane. Fast. I liked listening. I didn't need to be the loudest person in the group. She noticed that, smiled, and pulled me into her orbit. We started seeing each other that same week. In the beginning, we were good. She liked picking the restaurant, and I liked finding the quiet table in the back. She planned crowded Saturdays. I made pancakes on Sundays. It felt like a fair trade. Her energy made me try new things. My steadiness calmed her when plans fell apart. For a while, that balance worked. Then small things shifted. At gatherings, she stopped saying my boyfriend. She would wave a hand and say, "This is Liam." People nodded and moved on. I told myself not to read into it. When I asked her later, she laughed and touched my shoulder. "Don't overthink it. You're fine." I tried to relax, but I started noticing what I wasn't seeing. Our photos together thinned out on her feed. Then they were gone. In their place were shots of her at openings, her with new friends, her on late nights out. When I asked if she wanted me to take a picture with her, she tilted her head and said, "Let's just be in the moment." Another week, she told me I was too comfortable. She said it with a casual tone, like weather talk. "I want someone who can match my pace," she said. I said I was trying, and I was. We were both busy in our own ways. I thought it was enough. The night that stuck with me most was her show. She'd been buzzing about it for weeks. I carried boxes, hung work, and ran out for tape when we ran low. I ordered food for the small after-event and handed out flyers on the sidewalk. I was glad to see her proud. Inside, people drifted from piece to piece. I stood nearby, happy to watch. A couple asked Claire, "Who helped you pull this off?" She didn't even turn toward me. "Just someone who helped," she said, already moving on to the next conversation. I stood there, hands still marked with tape residue. Just someone. It rang in my head the rest of the night. After the show, she spoke in new phrases. Reclaiming myself. Owning my story. I wanted that for her, but I wondered where I fit in that story now. When I asked if we were okay, she stared at the window and said, "You're part of my past. I'm moving forward." The sentence was clean, like she'd practiced it. We didn't have a final fight. No big scene. It was a slow fade that had already happened by the time I noticed. She unfollowed me, then blocked me. Mutual friends stopped liking my posts. In a week, it looked like we had never been together. 3 years, and the timeline showed nothing. I walked the city at night that month. Past the river, over the bridges, into neighborhoods where nobody knew us. I thought about how easy it is now to edit a life. Tap and delete. Tap and delete again. The world claps for a fresh start, and the people left behind become a rumor. Friends asked what happened. I said we grew apart. It was the simplest answer, and it kept me from saying things I might regret. I kept my head down. I tried to sleep. I told myself that being quiet could also be strong. By winter, the erasing felt complete. No photos. If you searched for us, there was no us to find. I told myself that meant I could start over too. But some nights, walking past her old train stop, I still felt like a shadow passing through my own life. It's strange how silence can feel heavier than words. After Claire erased me, I tried to rebuild, but it wasn't just the breakup that hurt. It was how invisible I'd become. Mutual friends looked at me differently, like I'd done something wrong. I could tell they'd heard a version of the story, not mine, hers. She was the one who had outgrown me, the one who needed to follow her truth. I was the comfortable guy who held her back. She framed it perfectly, and I didn't argue. What was the point? The more I tried to explain, the more it sounded like bitterness. So I went quiet. I deleted a few old posts, packed away the things that reminded me of her, and focused on simple goals. Eat better, get out more, meet people who didn't know her name. For the first time in years, I had no one to impress. Time passed. Slowly, the sting dulled. I found a new apartment in another city. Smaller, I met new coworkers who didn't ask about my past. I started therapy, something I'd put off for years. Those sessions helped me see patterns I'd ignored. How often I accepted being treated like a footnote because I was afraid of losing someone. I began learning to speak up, to draw lines. Months turned into years. I stopped checking her socials, stopped replaying the last night we spoke. Claire became more of a lesson than a person, something that used to matter but didn't shape me anymore. Or at least, that's what I thought. Then one afternoon, while scrolling through LinkedIn, a familiar name appeared in the People You May Know section. Claire. The photo was new, her hair shorter, her smile practiced. I hovered over her profile, debating whether to click. I told myself it was just curiosity. She was running motivational workshops now, authentic living, finding power through truth. I stared at the banner photo of her speaking to a small crowd, arms wide, confident. It was so her. She'd always been good at turning personal moments into public messages. At first, I smiled. She looked happy. But over time, her post shifted. The tone changed. The confident lines softened into something more raw. One caption read, "Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who leave you the emptiest." Another, "Starting over after betrayal isn't weakness, it's strength." Betrayal? I blinked at the word. Claire had always been the one leaving, not the one left behind. Curiosity won. I clicked through a few more. Each one hinted at the same story: heartbreak, silence, confusion. She never named anyone, but the pattern was familiar. Someone had disappeared from her life. Then a mutual acquaintance posted congratulations on her engagement, a man I didn't recognize. A few months later, the posts about love vanished. Then came the ones about pain. The dots connected easily. Her dream partner, the one she told friends was her perfect match, had ghosted her. Not just left, but erased her, blocked her, vanished. For a long moment, I just sat there, reading the captions over and over. No satisfaction, just quiet understanding. Life had come full circle. The symmetry of it hit me hard. Years ago, she deleted me from her story, wrote a new one without a trace of my name. And now, someone had done the same to her. I didn't send a message, didn't comment, didn't even follow. I just closed the tab and sat with the feeling. Karma doesn't always come with thunder or applause. Sometimes, it arrives in whispers, small echoes that remind you life keeps its own balance. For a long time, I used to think silence made me weak. Like if I didn't defend myself, I was letting her win. But as I watched Claire face the same quiet she once gave me, something shifted. It wasn't joy, not revenge, just a deep sense that things had finally evened out. Still, I wondered if she understood what had really happened. Did she see the pattern? Or was she now painting herself as the victim of another toxic relationship, rewriting the story like before? Part of me hoped the pain had forced her to pause, to look in the mirror life was holding up. Because that's the thing about karma, it doesn't shout. It doesn't always crash into your world. Sometimes, it mirrors your actions back to you, until you're forced to see yourself from the outside. A few weeks after I noticed her new posts, something unexpected happened. I was making dinner, half listening to a podcast, when my phone buzzed. A notification popped up, a message request. I didn't recognize the number at first. Then I saw the name. Claire. I froze for a second, thinking it had to be a mistake. We hadn't spoken in nearly 5 years. I tapped it open. Her profile picture was the same one from her workshops, that careful smile, trying to look strong. And there it was, her first line. "Hey, I don't know if you'll see this, but I owe you an apology." I just stared at it. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. The hurt I once carried had softened into something else. Distance, maybe even understanding. I sat down and read the rest. She wrote that life had come full circle, that she'd fallen in love again, deeply, blindly. "He made me feel seen," she said, "like I was finally home." They'd built everything fast: trips, plans, shared passwords, photos of Sunday mornings. She thought it was forever. But one day, she woke up and he was gone. No message, no warning, just silence. He'd blocked her everywhere, cut off contact with her family, deleted every photo, every comment, every trace. "It's like he wiped me off the planet," she wrote. "And it reminded me of you." I read that line 3 times. She said she'd spent weeks trying to understand it, replaying every moment, asking what she'd done wrong. "I felt small," she wrote, "like I never existed." And then she said the words I never thought I'd hear. "Now I know what I did to you. I'm so sorry." She explained that back then, she thought she was reclaiming herself, that she wanted space, growth, freedom. But she admitted she hadn't realized how cruel erasure could be, how pretending someone never mattered is its own kind of violence. "You didn't deserve that," she wrote. "You were kind. You stood by me. And I treated your presence like a burden. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say I'm sorry." I set my phone down and just sat there, listening to the hum of the fridge. For years, I tried to make sense of what happened, to find some logic in the slow fade, the silence. And now, there it was, wrapped in her own pain. She finally saw it. It didn't feel like victory, more like a door quietly clicking shut after years of being half open. Her message ended simply. "If nothing else, thank you for showing me what real care looked like. I see it now. For the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt acknowledged, seen." Still, I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed to think, to decide what mattered more, saying something or letting the peace hold. Because forgiveness, I was learning, doesn't always come from words. Sometimes, it's just the moment you realize you've already let go. That night, I kept rereading her message. Every line felt like a mirror held up to the past, the confusion, the silence, the slow unraveling I once lived through. For years, I'd questioned my worth. replayed every conversation, and wondered what made me so easy to forget. Now the person who had erased me was describing that same emptiness. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to be sure my words came from peace, not pride. I thought about those nights when I'd stared at the ceiling, asking what I'd done wrong. The mornings I'd looked in the mirror and seen someone smaller, someone unsure. And then the long road back. Therapy, distance, time. The truth was, I didn't want to reopen something that had already closed. I'd worked too hard to find my footing again. Writing back with bitterness would only drag me back to a place I no longer lived in. So I took a deep breath, opened the message window, and typed slowly. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. I hope you find peace. I stared at the sentence for a long time before hitting send. It was short but honest. Not an invitation, just acknowledgement. A few minutes later, her reply came. You already have. I'm still trying. That was it. No promises to meet, no talk of second chances. Just two people recognizing a past that once defined them. And somehow that was enough. After that night, I didn't unblock her. I didn't scroll through her old photos or search her name again. Some doors, once closed, are meant to stay shut. But something inside me shifted. For years, I'd been carrying a ghost. Not her, but the version of myself who had accepted invisibility. The one who thought silence was weakness. Reading her message, it felt like I could finally set him down. Life kept moving, as it always does. I saw less and less of Claire online. Maybe she deleted her accounts. Maybe she started fresh under a new name. It didn't matter. Because my world was different now. I'd met someone, Rachel. She wasn't loud or dramatic. She didn't need an audience. She noticed small things, the way I took my coffee, how I paused before answering tough questions. With her, I never felt like I was fading. If anything, I grew. We spent quiet weekends cooking, walking along the lake, and talking about plans that didn't need to impress anyone. She was steady, grounded. Nothing about her love felt performative. One evening, we sat on the pier watching the sunset melt into the water. The air was calm, and for the first time in a long time, so was I? She turned to me and asked, have you ever been in love before? It was a fair question. I thought of Claire, the spark, the noise, the slow vanishing. Then I looked at Rachel, calm, kind, unhurried. Not like this, I said. She smiled and leaned against my shoulder. We didn't need to say anything more. I realized then that closure doesn't always come with a grand moment. Sometimes it's quiet. A message you didn't expect. A sunset with someone who makes you feel seen. A life that no longer revolves around trying to prove your worth. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the erased one. I felt whole, not because Claire came back, but because I no longer needed her to. That's the thing about karma. It rarely crashes down with noise or drama. More often, it moves quietly, showing you what you've become through what you've survived. Claire had once taught me what love shouldn't feel like. Filtered, conditional, curated for an audience. Rachel, on the other hand, taught me what love could be. Simple, steady, and safe. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about being seen, fully and honestly. With her, I stopped walking on eggshells. I didn't have to earn space or chase affection. The peace was real, and it allowed me to grow into someone I actually liked being. Months later, a mutual acquaintance mentioned Claire in passing. She left Chicago, they said, moved back home for a while. She's been volunteering at a shelter, working with teens. Seems different now. I nodded, quietly. There was no satisfaction in hearing that, just understanding. Life had humbled her, the same way it had once humbled me. Maybe she'd finally stopped running from her own reflection. Maybe she'd learned that you can't rewrite a story by erasing people. You just end up editing out the lessons too. It made sense though. People don't erase others because they've grown. They do it because they're scared. Scared of accountability, scared of being seen for who they really are, scared that letting someone stay will expose the parts of them they don't want to face. And when life flips the script, when they become the one erased, they're forced to feel the emptiness they once created. That's not punishment, it's balance. I don't know if Claire ever forgave herself. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. But for me, forgiveness was never about letting her off the hook. It was about putting the weight down, the need to be understood, the ache of being forgotten. Because the truth is, when someone tries to erase you, they don't actually succeed. You don't vanish. You evolve. You shift into a version of yourself that no one else can define. And that's what I learned. Healing doesn't come from rewriting the past. It comes from writing a new chapter that doesn't depend on old wounds. Karma didn't come for Claire with fury. It came through reflection. Life had given her the same silence she once handed to me. It showed her what it feels like to disappear from someone's story. And in that mirrored pain, she found awareness. Last I heard, she was still helping others, guiding them through loss, talking about rebuilding, about self-worth. Maybe that's her redemption. Maybe that's her lesson. I hope so. As for me, I don't need her to remember me anymore. I've written my own story now, one where I'm not the side character, not the erased name in someone else's narrative. I'm the author. And in this story, love isn't something that fades with silence. It's something that grows through kindness, understanding, and presence. Sometimes, karma doesn't announce itself. It just shows you who you've become long after the storm has passed. Claire once preached authentic living. Now, she's living the lesson she used to only talk about. And maybe that's enough, not as punishment, but as understanding. When I think back on it all, I don't feel anger anymore. Just gratitude for what it taught me, for who I became because of it, and for the peace that followed. Because in the end, the real ending wasn't her apology. It wasn't karma catching up. It was I who realized that I no longer needed to be remembered by the one who forgot me. I moved on, not erased, but rewritten. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.